Bonjour, mes amis, and welcome to another adventure in French. And I think it's fairly obvious what this adventure is. It is a very colorful lesson indeed. It is the colors in French. Let me just remind you of two things before we get started. One, that colors are adjectives. So that means that they have to agree in gender and number with the nouns that they modify. And also, because they're adjectives, colors are going to be placed after the noun. That's different from English. We like to put our adjectives in front, but in French, they go after the noun. And there are no exceptions to that rule when it comes to colors. All right? So they're going to agree in gender and number with their nouns, and they are going to be placed after the nouns. All right, so let's get started with my favorite color here. Red, or as we say en français, rouge. Rouge. All right, now you'll notice I don't have a feminine form for rouge. I just have what you might consider the masculine form. And that's because rouge has only one form that is used for both masculine and feminine. All right, like rouge, we have the color jaune. Jaune for yellow. Jaune also has simply one form that is used for both masculine and feminine nouns. Another color that has just one single form is the color for pink. Rose. Rose. Be careful, it's a false cognate. Doesn't mean rose, it means pink. Rose. And then the other color that has a single form for masculine and feminine is orange. Orange for orange. Now, there is also something a little bit different about orange from all the other orange from all the other colors. And that is that orange is what we call an invariable adjective. That means it never changes form from what you see here. It always has this O-R-A-N-G-E spelling, regardless of whether it's masculine, regardless of whether it's feminine, regardless of whether it's singular, or regardless of whether it is plural. It only has one form. And the reason for that is because it's a color that comes from a noun. The word for the fruit is also orange. And whenever you have an adjective that comes from a noun, it remains invariable. And so orange is very simple. It just has the one form. All right. Now, moving on from those four, we do have colors that indeed have different masculine and feminine forms. Some of them simply add an E to the masculine to form the feminine, such as the word for blue, which is bleu, bleu. Now, because it ends with a vowel sound, adding the E does not change the pronunciation whatsoever. It's simply a spelling change between masculine and feminine. Bleu, bleu. All right. Let's go on to the word for green, which is vert. Notice the final T in the masculine is silent, as many final consonants are in French words. Vert. But the minute we add that E for the feminine, that E gives me permission now to pronounce the T. And so it becomes verte in the feminine. Vert, verte. And something similar happens with the word for gray here. It's gris in the masculine. We don't pronounce the final S. But in the feminine, once I add that E, it gives me permission now to pronounce the S, and so it becomes grise in the feminine. Gris, grise. Another color that forms its feminine by simply adding an E to the masculine is noir for black. Noir, and then the feminine is also noir, but it has an E. Because this adjective ends with an R, we normally pronounce final R's, so it's not going to make a difference in the pronunciation. Noir and noir. Okay, let's go on now to another one that adds E, and that is the color for brown. And something interesting is going to happen here. Listen, This UN is a nasal pair, so we're going to have a nasal vowel sound, brun, brun. But the minute we add that E, it takes away the nasality of the nasal sound, and it's just going to be pronounced with a straight vowel sound, and it's going to be brune, brune, brun, brune for brown. Okay, the color for white, blanc in the masculine. Normally we pronounce final C's, but not in this case. All right, blanc, but the feminine is blanche. We don't just add an E. In this case, we add an HE. It's irregular, so we get blanc and blanche. And then finally, we have, for purple, violet in the masculine. This ET is pronounced like A, violet. But notice in the feminine, we're going to double that T and then add the E, so it becomes violette. Violet, violette. So let's go through and pronounce those together again. Rouge, jaune, rose, orange, bleu, bleu, vert, verte, gris, grise, noir, noir, brun, brune, blanc, blanche, violet, violette. All right. Now let me see if I can work my magic here. Well, almost. It's a coming. Very good. Ooh, let me add a text box. All right. There we go. Let me set my font to make it nice and pretty. All right. You can add two words to colors, and those two words are clair, and clair means light. Or you can add the word foncé, which means dark. So I could say something like bleu foncé, which would be dark blue, or I could say bleu clair, which is light blue. All right, you see how that works. And if I wanted to make it feminine, you would think I would just go ahead and add an E and then add an E. But that's not the case. Why? Here's why. Once you add the words clair or foncé to a color to make it dark or light, you render the adjective invariable. So when I say bleu foncé, I have to use the masculine singular form of the adjective, of the color. Even if I'm talking about a feminine noun, I would still use the masculine singular, because once I add clair or foncé, I have to use the masculine singular of the color. The same is true if I'm talking about a plural noun. Even though the noun is plural, I would still use bleu foncé in the masculine singular because it's invariable. It's just a quirky thing about the colors. So, for example, if I wanted to say, a light brown dog, I would say un chien, okay? And the word for brown is brun in the masculine singular, all right? And then light is clair. Un chien brun clair. All right? But if I'm talking about a light blue car, car is feminine. So I would say une voiture, but I would still say brun clair. Because once I add clair to the adjective, I have to use the masculine singular form, even though I've got a feminine noun. So it's une voiture brun clair. And even if I were talking about plural cars, and I wanted to say les voitures brun clair, the light brown cars, it would still be brun clair, masculine. Again, because once I add clair, I have to use the masculine singular. I know it doesn't make sense. It's just a quirk of the language, but that's how it's done. Well, I want to thank you for joining me for this adventure in French colors. Now, I hope you'll go on and have a great day. I'll see you again for another adventure in French.